Welcome back to Board Game Breakfast, which you might notice is a bit late, and that's because I just got into America last night. I went to the gigantic board game fair Spiel in Essen, Germany, and had a really great time. Over the next few weeks, months, many months, I'll be talking about all the great and maybe it's not so great board games that were there, but there was a ton. Anyhow, one of the things I want to say was a big giant thank you to everybody who came up and talked to me, took pictures, said hi. There were, hundreds, it seems, just lots of folks, and that was really exciting for me and for Z and Eric and Ryan Metzler, the folks who were there. And you might see us there again next year. We'll have to wait and see. I would like to make a big announcement here, and I'd like everyone, it means you, to be involved. Jack Vassel was my son, who was born 4 years ago in the month of November, and he lived for a couple months before he passed away due to meningitis. When that happened, there was a great outpouring of support and sympathy from the board game community. And due to that, we started the Jack Vassel Memorial Fund, which is a fund that is dedicated to helping the board game online community when catastrophic things happen to members of that community. And you can go to our website, jackvassel.org, and you can apply there. And we have a committee made up of, I'm one of the committee, and Eric Summerer, and various different people from the board game industry, and we try to help as many as we can. Now, I say all this because our main fundraising for the year for the Jack Vassel Memorial Fund comes from a geek list at Board Game Geek, which is a place where you can list games, and you can put games and or other things up for auction there. This auction starts today, right now, and lasts for just a little under a month. And you will have the opportunity to either add things or bid on things that are there. And sometimes these things can be majorly spectacular. And so I'm putting out the call. First of all, check out the Geek List. The link will be in the description of this video. In one of the comments of this Geek List, we put a lot of the testimonials of folks who the fund has helped over the past year. Some of them wish to remain anonymous, others gave their names, but hopefully you can see that we are actually doing things with this. We're trying to help as many people who've had catastrophic things happen to them as we can. Secondly, I want to encourage you to maybe put something up for auction there. Maybe you have a cool version of a game that you don't play anymore, or maybe you're a designer and you want to put up a signed copy of your game, or some promos, or maybe you paint miniatures. There's all sorts of things, and you can look at previous Geek Lists that we've done in the last 3 years to see some of the neat ideas that people put up. Secondly, you can go in there, and I would subscribe to this Geek List and check it every once in a while. See what new stuff has been added, and go in there and bid on it and help out. But the third, and this is the most important thing of all, is spread the word. Do you know publishers? Go to those publishers and say, hey, don't miss out. Jump in on this. Here's a chance for you to give back to the community and to put up games for auction on this list. Tell your friends. Tweet it. Facebook it. Seriously, spread the word. Tell everyone about it. I really appreciate that. We have a tiny percentage that goes to overhead and taxes and things like that for the fund, like preparing taxes and things, and the website but the vast majority of the money, very big, I think we have one of the highest percentages of any not-for-profits, goes to people who need that help. And this is very exciting for me, and it's something I'm very enthusiastic, and I think it's a wonderful tribute to my son. For all those of you who've ever helped, a big thank you. All right, in the end, don't forget that link. Let's get to the news. Okay, there's really a ton of news, but we're just going to talk about a few things here. First of all, let's see, Gale Force 9 has announced Homeland, the board game, based on the very popular TV show that I have not seen, but many people like. So they've done Firefly and Sons of Anarchy, so this is kind of old hat for them, and then both of those games have been well received, so let's see how this one works. Imperial Assault from Fantasy Flight is coming out earlier than expected. It was originally announced Q1 2015. Now it's Q4 2014. This is a strange thing to happen when a game comes out earlier. We know this for sure because there was a few copies that were sold at Essen that were sold, I think, €100 a piece. There wasn't very many of them, but they were gobbled up and gone. So we'll see that coming out soon. Fantasy Flight has also announced Wave 1 of just different ally and villain packs. These are packs you don't need to buy, but let's say you want Chewbacca or Han Solo or IG-88 in your game, and they bring with them little things and how to insert them into this really cool scenario-based game. The last item of news is Magic the Gathering, the board game. Now, I mentioned this last week, I believe. Magic the Gathering, the board game, I had a chance to demo it at the Essen Spiel Fair and sat down and was also to talk to the guys who were working on this. So, to be very clear about Magic the Gathering board game, it is HeroScape come back. Now, not exactly. There's not as much terrain. You're not going to see these massive amounts of terrain because, well, that terrain is expensive. But the terrain is completely compatible, and if you have HeroScape terrain, you can put it on the board and use it. The movement, the attack, the defense of these characters in the game is pretty much identical to HeroScape. But this is a fully contained board game where you have a board with a few pieces of terrain on it. Each person's going to take one of the 5 planeswalkers from red, green, white, blue, and black from Magic the Gathering. And then you also have a couple squads of other units. Now the planeswalkers are fully painted. The squads are just plain plastic. Again, that's a cost-saving thing. HeroScape, as much as I love it, as much as I like it to come back, was extremely expensive with all the pre-painted miniatures in it. This will make the game a much more reasonable price. I believe there's like 36, 40 miniatures inside it. But what you do is you have your planeswalker and you have these squads, and you're moving your planeswalkers and you can summon these squads onto the board and then they fight each other. And your object is to take out the enemy planeswalker, or if you're playing a 2-1-2 match, to take out both the enemy planeswalkers. You'll also have a set of cards that come with you, that these are like the magic spells that you have. So different magic spells you'll expect. The red spells are fireballs and different things that can do damage directly to the other person. The blue spells are tricky and can move around different things to other players. The black spells are about bringing their people back from the death. There's a big magic flair in this, and it's not exactly HeroScape. It's like HeroScape 2.0. I played it and had a really good time. They were very clear that, first of all, Magic the Gathering, the strategy board game, is not the final title. They'll be changing the name. And everything else isn't set in stone either. So there's going to be a lot of development. This game is supposed to be released at Gen Con 2015. So I really look forward to seeing it then. But so far in the prototype that I played, I was very impressed. And while it's not a replacement for me for HeroScape, which is a game I like quite a bit, I think that this is a really solid game. Could easily shoot up into one of my favorites, and I'm excited to see where this game goes. Kick. Okay, so today we're looking at another one of my shelves and saying, why do I keep these different games on my shelf? Well, first of all here, I have Manhattan Project, which is one of the best worker placements ever made about making the atomic bombs and different bombs. You're not actually using them over the course of the game, but this game has some really great mechanisms and is one I highly recommend. Then here we have the Sentinels of the Multiverse. There's enough stuff now, enough that I have to put it in 2 different boxes. I use the Vengeance box and then their 3rd edition, I think, of their box, and really highly enjoy this game. Love it so very much. Such a great superhero game with a very strong theme. Then we have the Three Little Pigs, which is one of the series. So far, I think it's my favorite, although I haven't played, I think I've only played 2 of the series, of the Tales and Games, where it actually looks like a book. If you'll notice, you pull it out, it looks like a book that would go on the bookshelf here. And it's a great kids game, or a very, very light family game. Basket Boss is a quality game that I like quite a bit. Doesn't get a lot of buzz, but it's all about drafting a basketball team. So you're trying to get this basketball team together and have the best basketball team of the league each year. Pretty neat game. And then up here in the corner I have Showdown Icons, which is a game from Weird Miniatures. And it's basically kind of like a very advanced rock, paper, scissors with decks of cards with poker things on it, but there's more to it than that, and there's a lot of trying to totally outthink your opponent. I thought it was a very clever, interesting game, so that one managed to stay in my collection.
Hi, Internet. Didn't see you there. Look, let's face it. Whether you like zombies or not, they seem to be in it for the long haul. I mean, they're in our movies, they're in our literature, they're even in our Jane Austen, and they are in our board games. Not all zombies are created equal, And the same goes for zombie games. So, with all the games on the market, how do you separate the gristle from the tasty brains? If you like the mindless march to extermination, then you should play Zombies! The 3 exclamation marks imply excitement. Now, the nice people at Twilight Creations used an innovative tile-laying mechanism. You build the board as you play, and that was great a dozen years ago. But despite all its sequels, Zombies hasn't really aged well. Now, if you want to be on the winning side of the zombie apocalypse, Steve Jackson Games' Zombie Dice is a simple push-your-luck dice fest that pits you as the zombie trying to collect brains, while you avoid nasty shotgun blasts. The latest darling in the zombie set is, of course, the cooperative masterpiece Dead of Winter from Plaid Hat Games. Now, this game's not perfect. The Crisis cards do get a bit repetitive, but what it has going for it are 2 interesting decks of cards. There are the objective cards, which give every player a secret goal, and 2, the Crossroads cards, which give you mechanical and thematic choices to make. It is, if you've got a brain, pretty much the best zombie game that's available right now. Remember, no matter what game you choose to play to prepare you for the zombie apocalypse, be careful that in fighting the monster, you don't become one.
Folks, Tom Vassel here.
Jason Levine.
And special guest,
Brian Pope.
Man, you've been here many weeks in a row. All right. Today our question is asked where, do you re-rate games? You know, you rate a game and then as time goes by, it's possible that your rating on a game will change. Do you go back on Board Game Geek and rate them? Do you even rate them on Board Game Geek to begin with?
I do not.
Okay. Do you rate games?
Mm-hmm. Occasionally.
All right. I rate them all the time. And the question is, do you go back and re-rate them? And if not, does that bother you? And should a game rating system take that into effect, decaying ratings per se?
You know, I feel a duty if I've rated a game poorly and then I decided later I like it a lot or realize I didn't play something right about it and somebody else plays it with me and gives me a great experience, I feel duty bound to go on there and give it a better rating, a higher rating. But if I've given it a high rating and then later decide I'm not liking it as much, I just don't have the heart to go in there and change it to a lower rating, you know. And, who has the time to do that anyway?
So you don't decay your ratings. Well,
I'll improve them, upgrade them, but not decay them.
I do that. I do it both ways. Usually, though, I'm looking at games, different things, and I'll look at a rating. And one of the things that Board Game Geek does to help combat this is they have the date of the rating there. And so I usually look at it as like 4 or 5 years. If it's been 4 or 5 years since I rate the game, I'll look at it. If it's the same, I just put in the same rating, just to update the year. So if someone else looks at it, they know. But otherwise, I might say, yeah, I thought that was an 8 back then, but now it's probably a 7 or a 6. I don't play it as much. Or, wow, this game has really increased for me. There's several expansions have come out, so I really like it now. So now it's a 9 or something. So I do that, but with thousands of games, that would almost be a full-time job.
Yeah.
When you look at someone's ratings, do you think about the fact that maybe they rated it a long time ago when the only game they played was Monopoly?
No, well...
No, I'm being very serious.
No, when I go to Board Game Geek, I don't really look at ratings per se. Like, I don't look at, well, this is the number 1 game on Board Game Geek, or this is the number 20 game, or this has a rating of an 8.4. I don't look at that. I like to read reviews, see what people say about the game, to see how the game plays, and I get a better feel from it from that than just a rating. Because a lot of the people who do ratings don't actually put anything with it, and there's a lot of people that just put a 10, and a lot of people that just put a 1, and the ratings end up skewed, and I don't know. I never thought about the ratings that deeply. I always try to read more in depth into something.
Comments are always important. It's always important to know why someone likes a game. And I think it's always important, especially with the reviewers, to look at their whole body of work. They like this kind of game. Ratings are just a number. And some people will rate a game super high or super low for whatever reason. As for me, I try to keep up with them, but I don't consider them that important.
But I do feel that if you, let's say you rated a game a 9 5 years ago, most likely as new games have come out, you might like some other games better and you might rate it lower, like an 8 or a 7. I do think that theoretically someone should go back and do it, but obviously if you have a lot of games like we do, it's hard to go back and do that.
Well, that's it. Folks, if you have questions for us, send them to dicetower@gmail.com. We'll see you guys next time.
The Roaring Twenties was a vibrant time in American history for social issues, art, politics, and the circus. As a ringmaster, a thriving railway system allows you to take your show on the road and bring your talents to the masses. But show business is tough, and it will take a lot of hard work and a little bit of luck to show the world that you have the best circus train. You begin performance season with an untarnished reputation, a small stable of performers, and a handful of action cards. It's with these humble beginnings that you will travel to different cities and fight for the limelight. Once you've arrived at your destination, you'll be able to accomplish various tasks. Seeing as you are a traveling circus, your most common action is to perform. But you'll also have to round out your show by hiring on various talents that you encounter along the way. Every time you perform, you'll collect money and keep track of your most impressive performance to date. It's all very straightforward. Put on a show, get paid, hire new talent, rinse, and repeat. But what makes Circus Train something special? What sets Circus Train apart from your average game are the small details that add up to tell a fantastic story. Bankrupt circuses become hiring grounds to add to your show. But they will only join you if you have a good enough reputation. Though if you're desperate, you could always put out a casting call. Just be prepared to pay out the nose during peak season. Short on funds? Pocket a fistful of cash and suffer a hit to your reputation. You can specialize in a specific talent and become world famous for your clown show. Have a better reputation than a competitor? Move in and poach his prized elephant. There are special events that will occur and change the course of the game, making every game an unpredictable ride. All of these elements weave together to make a rich tapestry of clowns, big tops, and life on the rails. The thematic wrappings come at the expense of rule complexity, but it isn't enough to tarnish a completely fantastic game.
Okay, folks, I have a few games to review. And by a few, I mean like an avalanche, a mountain of games. This requires me to actually play some of the games, and I have lots of games ready to be reviewed, but you're going to see few, if any, reviews from me this week. There will be some reviews from the other folks in the Dice Tower Network, and you'll also see the final ending of the top 100 games of all time for myself and for Dan King, so check those out this week. We will jump into reviewing with a full throttle next week. But this week there's just different. I'm going up to Orlando, so if you happen to be in Orlando this coming Wednesday night, you'll have a chance to play games with me. We'll be at the Maitland Cool Stuff place to play games there. And so a lot of play testing and playing that's going to be done this week. And then next week, you'll see reviews, and you'll see some reviews of some amazing games. I'm so excited, but we're just going to hold that for next week. Don't forget also the Dice Tower. That's going to go up soon. We have the Dice Tower went up this morning, probably around the same time as this video was launched, where we talk about Kickstarter games. And pretty soon we'll be doing some post-Essen stuff. I'll be doing a live video where you can ask questions about Essen. That will either be at the very end of this week or sometime during next week. Anyway, enough talk about that. Let's get back to Chaz.
Hello, Chaz Marler from Pair of Dice Paradise. And I'm not here to burst your bubble, but today I'm starting a new mini-series all about bursting your bubble. At the time of this recording, the annual Essen Game Exhibition in Germany is taking place, where designers and publishers release a ton of new titles. In fact, this year at Essen, over 625 games are being released. Now think about that. If you were to play 2 of these new releases every day, it would still take you nearly 10.5 months to play them all. That's a lot of meeples. For several years, the board game hobby has been on an upswing, an explosion of new titles. And modern board games are also becoming more prevalent in popular culture, earning more shelf space at large retailers such as Barnes & Noble and Target, making brief appearances on broadcast television, and serving as the source material for major motion picture... Sorry, I can't say that about Battleship without... But, can too much of a good thing turn into a bad thing for the industry? This mini-series is going to explore that question, to determine if there's any warning signs right in front of us that board game enthusiasts and retailers should be looking out for. Now, the best way to describe what I see going on in the board game marketplace is going to be to compare it to the comic book industry, specifically the state of that industry from the mid-90s. Both are pop culture entertainment, which has suffered the stigma of being associated with geek culture, which makes some people shy away from it, while others wear it as a badge of pride. But the similarities don't stop there. In the mid-90s, there was an explosion of comic book titles over the course of several years. And this, combined with several other factors that I'll discuss in upcoming episodes, led to a glut of unsellable overstock, followed by an implosion of the industry. Now, could a similar fate be in store for board games? Well, let me be the first to say that such a thing is impossible! Unless, of course, history has been known to somehow, I don't know, repeat itself?
Hi, Suzanne here with this week's featured board game app. Bidding and negotiation games are really challenging to implement digitally because so much of the game depends on timing and reading your opponents. So let's take a quick look at the app version of Razzia to see if it's the successful implementation of a bidding game. Similar to the classic Reiner Knizia game Ra, Razzia is a mafia-themed bidding and set collection game in which you must balance risk and reward to dominate the underground. Of course, the cops are just around the corner, so get rich quick before the popo shows up and shuts you down. Razzia was developed by Bulky Pix, which is not normally known for board games, but they have a huge catalog of casual games they've made. The app has great production values with lovely art, animations, and sound effects. Most of the app must-haves are here, including a thorough tutorial that does a great job of teaching the game and interface, rules that are broken into chapters, and multiple AIs to play against. The pass and play works very well, but the online play is a bit of a mess. While it exists, I haven't actually managed to get to work, and I think it's a shame they didn't go with a standard like Game Center. Like with any game that has a bit of accounting, Razzia is great because all the round and endgame scoring is handled for you by the app. There is also an official app for Ra that was developed by Codito. It's kind of a toss-up which app you prefer. Razzia doesn't have the disaster cards that Ra does, making it maybe a bit simpler. But Razzia was developed with Reiner Knizia's consultation. Personally, I prefer the theme and look of Razzia over Ra. If you can overlook the lack of the functional online solution, Razzia is a well-produced app that beautifully ports the board game into the digital world. Give it a try.
As I mentioned at the beginning of the video, Essen was just a fantastic time to go there and see so many people. But I want to specifically concentrate on designers. Now, there are many designers there who I did not have a chance to run into, but I ran into quite a few. And I'm not talking about just the big name designers, and they were there. In fact, I think I ran into fewer of the big name designers and actually talked to a lot more of the smaller designers or designer/publisher. And guys, I was really humbled by many of these folks. With maybe one exception, all these designers and publishers, especially many of those whose games that I've kind of brutalized or been pretty mean to them sometimes in reviews, came up to me, and the humility and the niceness and the patience and the excitement that they showed me was astounding to me. I felt a little guilty, because here I had trashed one of their games that they had designed and or published, and they were so nice about it. I was amazed. Guys, it's tough to be a designer because in this current state of gaming, it seems like it's almost like the cool thing to be a designer. Everyone's like, oh, I got a game design. Everyone needs to be a designer. No, you don't have to be. But it's tough because everyone else seems to be wanting to design games too. And while the publishing companies are publishing them out at a vast rate, it's still hard to get your game to be published. When you get your game to be published and then a reviewer trashes it, doesn't matter how dumb that reviewer is or whatever, he probably didn't play the game right or whatever, it still doesn't make you feel very good to see that happen because it is your baby. I had my game trashed by several reviewers and I said, I don't care. But you care a little. You do, okay? It's just natural in how that works. And I was so amazed at how these folks came and were like, oh, I hope you like the next game. And were so kind and so generous and just excited about gaming in general. And that is what makes this hobby fantastic, folks. That is what I'm excited about. That is a wonderful thing and why I love going to conventions and meeting these people. So kudos to them. Kudos to the designers who work really hard and go to these conventions and show their games off and hope people like them. And it makes me want to play these guys' next designs so much more because I know they're enthusiastic and they might say, well, sure, we can take a bit of criticism. Maybe you'll like the next game. And I'm like, bring on the next game because I hope I do too, and I'm excited too. So to all designers and small publishers and everybody involved in the production, from me to you, a gigantic thank you. You guys do great.
The time has come, my friends. It's like all your favorite holidays rolled into one. It's like Christmas, your birthday, Chinese New Year's, Arbor Day, and the season premiere of Game of Thrones. What time is it? Dice Tower People's Choice Top 100. If you haven't watched the videos yet, pause this one, open another tab, watch all the videos, and then come back. As part of the celebration, we here at Whitleypedia have been comparing the People's Choice to the so-called Geek Voters list on Board Game Geek, where we look at the number of votes rather than the standard rankings. Last time we compared the Geek Voters to the People's Choice 2013, but this week we're comparing it to the 2014. As before, I assembled a spreadsheet and came up with a formula. If a game is in the top 100 both, it gets 5 points. Depending on how close they are to each other, they can get more points. The maximum total score is 1,000, but I figure that 500 is a more realistic maximum. The final score was 393.5, or 79% of our realistic maximum. Let's call that a C+. Remember, when we compared the voters list to the 2013 People's Choice, it got a B+. So that's a bit of a drop. Moreover, of the top 100, 56 games are on both. For 2013, that was 66. Of the top 50, 26 games are on both. But for 2013, that was 31. Of the top 25, 11 games are on both. For 2013, that was 15. And of the top 10, 9 games are on both. But for 2013, that was 7. So the top 10 is the only part of this where the 2014 outperformed the 2013. And it's testament to how solid those 9 games are, even after so many years for so many of them. The voters list, by definition, makes it hard for anything new to get up to quickly. So it makes sense that it wouldn't be quite as good at matching the People's Choice as one from a year ago. For example, the highest rated game on the People's Choice that's not on the Geek Voters list was Eldritch Horror, whereas for vice versa, it's Bonanza. But how do these lists compare to the standard Board Game Geek ranking? Well, that's a question for another time.
what's happening, everybody? I'm John Zenglein from ChalkboardGameReviews.com. I wanted to start a segment on Board Game Breakfast where I highlight some of the board game media creators out there. And I gotta start with my favorite, and that's Flip the Table. Now, these guys certainly are not cult of the new. They're not even cult of the good. These guys are cult of the cheesy and weird board games that you played from the 80s and 90s when you were a kid. You know, those mass market roll and move games. If you want a good laugh, you should check out Flip the Table. Let me give you a little side story. I'm a janitor by trade, so I get to listen to probably 10 to 20 hours of podcasts as I work at night. Now, here's me at a job cleaning toilets, but I'm listening to Flip the Table, and I got a smile on my face, and I am laughing my brains out. People must be walking by thinking, man, that guy really likes cleaning toilets. These guys get me laughing out loud consistently in every episode. In their most recent episode, they look at Beakman's World, that 90s weird science television show that had a board game named after it. These guys really get into some deep stuff. They play VCR games, even an audio tape game. My favorite episode so far has to be the Vanilla Ice rap game. You want to hear Jared drop some beats? You gotta check that out. Their podcast episodes are structured in a way where they talk about maybe the history behind what board game it is that they're playing. Then they go through the gameplay of the game and give their final thoughts of it. Sometimes they find some gems, but most of the time, it's really awkward. Think Mystery Science Theater 3000, but for board games. In the past few months, they've been asking the very important question where you can find them on social media and answer the question, and if your answer is selected, you win 10,000 points. At the end of every episode, they have a battle of wits, where one of the cast creates a game. Sometimes it's guessing prices on eBay. Sometimes it's guessing what the rating is of a movie or a TV show on the IMDb website. Sometimes it's wrong categories. No doubt there are laughs to be had if you listen to Flip the Table. I highly recommend it. You should check it out.
And that's it for this time. Not as much me in this video, which is always a good thing, but I'll be back with a lot more stuff next week. Once again, Jack Vassel Memorial Fund. Check it out. Check it out. Get involved. Tell everyone. Spread the word. Tweet it. I'm very excited about this. Until next time, I'm Tom Vassel, and you've been watching Board Game Breakfast.
Thanks for watching Board Game Breakfast. Tune in each week for your daily dose of gaming goodness with Tom Vassel and all the gang. Until next time, I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching Board Game Breakfast, a Dice Tower production, sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc., an amazing place to buy board games. Cool stuff, in stock, at CoolStuffInc.com.